So today we got some more chicks in, and it was in perfect timing because we just moved our other chicks that are about 6 weeks old into our barn, and they're getting big. They're in a different style brooder, and so this brooder was empty. So we got the new chicks in, and I was gonna set it up, but I figured I'd kind of run y'all through how we raise chicks and kind of what supplies we use, and so hopefully you'll find some of this stuff useful. And I had a friend at work. He was asking about chicks because the egg prices were getting kind of crazy, and so I got him into chicks, and I was sitting there telling him everything he needs to know of how to raise the chicks. And so hopefully he can refer back to this video. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was the shelter or the brooder, where you're going to put your chicks when you get them. So we are using it's a watering trough, and I'm not sure the gallon size, but it's fairly big. It's like 2 feet by, I want to say 4 feet. And these are a little bit pricey, so you may not want to do this the first round, but we've been doing this for a while, and this we've found to be the easiest. In the past, we've used wooden, plywood boxes and different things, which are fine to start out with if you have that stuff laying around. But over time, it kind of rots, and it's not portable. It's hard to clean out. We've kind of lifted this idea from the actual feed stores, and it seems to be the best. There's a reason why they do it that way for a small scale. I'm going to talk about the bedding, what you need to put inside here to keep them dry and keep them clean. We're going to use pine shavings, and we like to use the fine pine shavings, not the big flakes. You may choose something different, but for us, the fine is the best. And the reason why is because the chicks are small, the flakes are bigger, and it just makes kind of a mess. It'll get in the water, and this seems to be the cleanest. And then we want to talk about the heat lamps. They're going to need heat, especially for the first 4 or 5 weeks. I think I have one back here. So you can pick these up at all your feed stores. We like to keep the guard on here, and just as a safety measure. So if you're doing these inside your house, be careful. Always have like a smoke detector. Keep an eye on it, and you always want to clamp. Use the clamps, clamp it onto something. But as an extra safety measure, we use a C-clamp. So, and this is a mechanical, like heavy-duty C-clamp. And what I do with this is I'm going to clamp this around their clamp, and that way, because this is kind of weak, and it can slip and fall, and you wouldn't even know. And if you leave the house, you want something that's going to be secure, and you can feel comfortable and that nothing's going to happen while you're gone. So once you clamp this to the side, crank it down as tight as you can, so when you leave the house, you know for sure. This isn't obviously how I would end up setting it up. There. And make sure it's on the lip. There we go. We got some more threads. Oops. All right, I got it pretty tight. So this thing is not going to go anywhere, and that just gives you a little bit more peace of mind. All right. So and always keep an extra set of bulbs around, just in case something happens to this bulb. That you have one you can take out, especially when they're young, and you can replace it fairly quick, because you don't want them to get cold. That's one of the worst things that can happen to new chicks is they chill and get cold, and then what happens after that.
Pasty butt.
Yeah, pasty butt, or worst case scenario, you lose a chick. So that covers the heat, the bedding, and their actual brooder. If you want, I don't want to make this video too long, but if you wanted to get really crazy, if you have like cats in the house or something crazy, you want to cover this with a grate, something that can't be penetrated. Hardware cloth is a good one. You can build a little PVC, something to clamp down with hardware cloth on it, 1x4, something you have laying around. Something I forgot to mention was the weight of these troughs, and they're fairly light. They look like they'd be heavy, But I mean, you can lift them up. I usually lift these by myself, but I have a 16-year-old and an 11-year-old, and they can move them, you know, if they need to help out. So that's a plus. That's a pro for this thing. All right, so next let's move on to their feed, because they're going to need to eat when they get in here, in their brooder. We're going to use the chick starter. This is a grower feed. Some feed stores have it labeled different. There's a couple different kinds: organic, medicated. This is just regular starter grower. We've gone both ways and done medicated and just regular. We don't really care either way. Whatever they have at the feed store, we're gonna get that at the time. So I wouldn't get hung up on that. So now that this is the feeder we use, there's a couple different styles. There's some that look similar to like a waterer. That'd be okay for a couple chicks. If you're growing more than 4 or so, I would definitely get a feeder like this. They're plastic, they're easy to clean, and also it'll keep the feed cleaner because the chicks can't get into the actual the food. They can peck at it, but they won't be able to just run around inside of it. Clean this out, I would say, when it's empty or if it gets overflowed with pine shavings. Okay, and feed's pretty simple. Just feed them once a day, or when it's empty. They're gonna eat as much as they need, but don't let them go hours without eating. Let them eat as much as they want to eat, and they'll grow and be healthy at that point. All right, now we're gonna talk about their water. This is probably the most important part, is keeping them hydrated. Initially, when you get these chicks from the feed store or in the mail, they're gonna be day olds, just hatched. Probably not going to have access to a lot of water or any water at that point. So as soon as you get them, you want to get them drinking water. And I recommend giving them some sort of electrolyte. Doesn't really matter. Don't get hung up on the brand or the kind. Just get them some sort of electrolyte that they have at the feed store. This one we're using is Hydrohen, and it has 3-in-1 probiotic, electrolytes, acidifiers. Give them water. Give them a little bit of electrolytes. Don't get too caught up in all the science in it. The size of water is kind of important, especially if you're getting day-old chicks. At the feed stores they may have this size, which I want to say it's like a 2-quart or something like that. It's the bigger style, but it has a big channel right here. And we've had in the past where some of the chicks have jumped in here and spun on their backs, and they can't get out. So they end up drowning. So for safe measure, for the first week or so, maybe 3 or 4 days till they'll grow fast. So once they get a little more, they walk around better and a little bit easier on their feet, more coordinated, I should say. Keep them with this one right here. It's a little more safe. Has a little bitty channel. You're gonna have to change this out quite often, but it's worth it because you won't lose as many chicks. It's just safer. So, but make sure you're changing water regularly. And I mean, if you have to do it twice a day, change it twice a day, at least once a day. You'll have the most success if you keep their water clean. The reason why is they will get wood shavings into the water, and the wood shaving has poop on it, and it'll sit in the water, so you want to make sure this is clean as possible. All right, the way we set up the heat lamp is we'll set it all the way to one side, and that way they kind of have a couple different temperature zones in the brooder. They'll have a warmer section, and then further away from the lamp it'll be cooler. And the reason we do this is the chicks they'll self-regulate their temperature, body temperature, by moving away and towards the light. So you want to make sure you give them enough room to do that. So if you had this in the heat lamp in an enclosed area that was all heat and no cool or different temperature spots, they're going to probably get overheated, or they could get overheated. So we found to give them the option to move away from the light. All right, when I'm setting this brooder up, I set the food up a little bit halfway, maybe a little bit to the colder side. And the reason I do that is because at night when the chicks go to sleep or they start resting, they're going to tend to crowd kind of around the heat, the light. And so I don't want them sleeping on the food because they will sit there and poop. So I want to make sure they're all nestled around a clean area, not where there's food and poop and where they've been sleeping. The water is the same way. I'd put the water probably the opposite side. If I had two feeders in here, then I'd put the water towards the center. But like I said, I don't want to have the water next to the heat lamp. And I just don't want to park in there, and I don't want them getting the water and the food dirty. I want them to have two separate areas. It smells like coconut or something. All right, let's put him in the new house. Soft. All right, it's time to put him in. We've got Self Blue. Is it Self Blue coaching? And then Partridge coaching. And I think these are straight run. So I guess I'll go ahead and introduce them to the water too. I like to just dip their beak in a little bit. Just to kind of show them where water is. They probably haven't had a drink yet. Get the fluids and everything going. There it goes. All right. There you go. You can see him try to drink instinctively, so that's good. These egg chickens. Sit out.
That one's telling the cats to get out.
We do have cats and a lot of predators, so I'm gonna go ahead and put this over it. And for extra measure, put a little clamp on it so nothing can get in. And I'll probably end up putting something across it, like a board or something to hold it down, but I also have some clamps on the side to keep it in place. I forgot to mention, if you're wondering how long we keep these in here, we're gonna keep them in here for about 4 weeks. At that point, we're gonna move them, once they're all feathered out, we're gonna move them into our bigger brooder for another 4 or 5 weeks, and then we're gonna move them into the big chicken barn. We'll introduce it with the whole flock. All right. So that's it. That's day-old chicks and setting up a brooder. Like I mentioned before, have fun with this. Don't take it too serious. You don't have to do the exact setup that we have. We're just showing you what we like to use. But yeah, use anything you have you know, at the house or just beginner, look online, try to find small brooders, and have fun growing your chicks. Yeah, good job. Good job.
Flowers. Who's that? Cheetos.